Earlier this year, Trump's Secretary of State Mike Pompeo spoke exclusively here on Outsiders to express his concern about Dan Andrews' repugnant Belt and Road deal with the Chinese Communist government. Thanks to that interview, which had the lovies running around like headless chooks, Australia got to learn for the first time what Andrews was and is up to and why Belt and Road is such an insidious program. This week, Mike Pompeo outlined many of the other foreign policy concerns, initiatives and successes of the last 4 years under Donald Trump.
We built out real coalitions, a coalition that crushed the caliphate in Syria, a coalition that's pushed back against the Chinese Communist Party, a coalition that refused to appease Iran. The list of work that we've done is great. We work with nations when we have common interests, and we develop coalitions that actually deliver real results and reflect the reality on the ground. That wasn't what was happening when we came in here to the State Department. We built out enormous teams. I'm proud of the work the State Department's done. We're going to continue to do that. It's our responsibility. So long as we have these offices, it's our duty to continue to deliver on American security, and we've done it well, and we'll continue to do so.
And he only scratched the surface. Peace deals between Israel and Arab states, as Rita mentioned earlier, moving the embassy to Jerusalem, keeping North Korea in check and so on. It's a phenomenal list of achievements for one term of office and no new wars. But the key words for me in Pompeo's statement were, as long as we hold the office. That is, of course, the single most critical issue at stake in the world today. As Melanie Phillips, the brilliant columnist, writes, a Biden administration will be one of appeasement, based on the belief that Western power is illegitimate and should not be exercised. My fear is that Joe Biden, or Joe Obama, as they're now calling him, will simply surrender to the many malign forces swirling around us. Already he has appointed someone to his team who disgustingly supports Palestinian suicide bombers. As I repeatedly warned in the run-up to this election, of the current crop of national leaders, only Donald Trump genuinely fights for the values and security and prosperity of the West and against the insidious cultural Marxism of the modern left. The practical elimination of unemployment, illegal immigration and oil imports, the tax reductions and deregulations, the hundreds of federal judges who believe in the Constitution, the deliverance of America from the terror and economic masochism of the Paris Climate Accord, the progress towards Middle East peace, the destruction of ISIS, the drawdown of forces and re-establishment of the theory of nuclear non-proliferation among completely irresponsible states, and the recognition of the Chinese challenge have all been important Trump accomplishments, wrote Conrad Black. Indeed, and they are all at risk of being lost under Biden. But is Biden really certain to be the next president? You won't read about it or hear about it anywhere in the mainstream media. In fact, you'll be laughed and sneered at and mocked, as I am, if you even suggest it. But the battle for the Oval Office is actually just heating up. Overnight, we learned that apparently Pennsylvania looks like going to the Supreme Court. One judge is said to have said that the 2020 Pennsylvania election was likely unconstitutional and that the Trump team, quote, has a likelihood to succeed in giving state legislators the power to choose the members of the Electoral College, which would be hugely important.
We will win, and we will win soon. It's happening.
If we're all honest, many of us know deep down that the election was dodgy. We're just terrified to admit it. Bizarrely, the fact that there were so many irregularities on November the 3rd, to put it mildly, so much evidence, not so little, and so many different legal challenges that are now happening, that the sheer scale of the alleged coup, because that's what we're actually talking about, leaves many people simply too terrified to believe that the left, in their hatred of Trump, could really be so corrupt. But here's just a sample of what we know. On November 4th at 9 p.m, a whole bunch of new boxes of ballots arrived in Detroit. Computer operators manually added the names to the qualified voter file, and every ballot was given the same birthday, January 1st, 1990. An eyewitness was told that this was the instruction that came down from the clerk's office. Watch in this one video, which is about 30 seconds long, but we've edited it down, how on CNN during the calling of the results, Trump's vote literally drops by 20,000 votes from 1.69 million to 1.67 million in a matter of moments. How does that happen? It is also alleged, but disputed, that 71 precincts out of just one city, Milwaukee, have up to 3.5 times more votes than voters. It's alleged in another one that the votes exceed voters by a factor of 7. And similarly in Pennsylvania, where a hearing is being held into the allegations of fraud, one poll watcher claimed that 47 missing USB drives uploaded up to 120,000 illegal votes. As a forensic computer scientist, he said, "My interest is in the data. Where did it go?" The same hearing heard from an expert witness about a dump of votes, of which 570,000 went to Biden and only 3,000 went to Trump, eliciting disbelief and laughter around the room.
So that big spike that occurs there is a prime indicator of fraudulent voting.
And that's 604,000 votes in 90 minutes, is that right?
Correct. This is 337 votes, 337,000 votes in that
period of time.
Yes.
And when you look at this entire curve with all these spikes, can you calculate how much of a vote that accounted for Biden and how much for Trump?
Close to 600,000. I think our figures are about 570 some odd thousand that all those spikes represent over time.
For Biden?
Correct.
And how much for Trump?
I think it was a little over 3,200.
Then there's the military information expert claiming the voting systems allow unauthorised and authorised users to cancel votes, shift votes, preload votes, and vote blank ballots, all in real time. And here's the man heading Donald Trump's legal team, who you just saw, Rudy Giuliani, questioning how come Pennsylvania officially mailed out to registered voters 1.8 million mail-in votes, but the Biden victory tally officially claims 2.5 million mail-in ballots.
I don't know what accounts for that 700,000 difference between the number of ballots you sent out and the number of ballots that ended up in the count. That number, 2,589,242, was on your government website until yesterday. And yesterday it was removed without explanation. I'm going to be very interested in hearing what the explanation is. And I can't imagine you could possibly certify without knowing the explanation of that, as well as the explanation to the 22,686 mail-in ballots that were returned on the day they were mailed. That's a trick.
That's a trick, indeed it is, but the tricks abound. The American Thinker website lists a whole host of oddities about the election, including the fact that Biden garnered more votes than even Obama did, a sublime unlikelihood, and the sudden and nigh miraculous manna drop of late-arriving ballots in the wee hours, which tilted the scale for Biden when the Republican scrutineers had been sent away. Spectator USA soberly lists another 10 factors that it claims make this election highly irregular. And then there is the huge 007-worthy story about the Dominion voting systems allegedly calibrated to favour Biden and erase Trump votes. Veteran lawyer Robert Kirk is convinced that the facts are, to quote, the kind and quality of substantial evidence which, if presented to a jury, would easily result in a unanimous verdict by all 12 jurors beyond a reasonable doubt that the re-election of Donald J. Trump was stolen. Indeed, in what has become known as releasing the Kraken, attorney Sidney Powell says she is defending the foundations of this great republic against what she describes as massive fraud. These are very high stakes and these people are not kidding. Yet you won't get any serious analysis of the likelihood or otherwise of success of the cases in any mainstream media. Indeed, all you will read is that Trump is doomed. If today's journos were covering Apollo 13, they'd all be saying, nah, those astronauts are going to fry in that capsule. There's no way they can ever get back, so let's forget about them and focus on Apollo 14 instead. Last week came another court victory for the Trump team, and a Nevada judge agreed to let them present the evidence that fraud and illegalities plagued the state's election. In Pennsylvania on Wednesday, a judge stopped the election certification amid mass voter fraud evidence. Yesterday, Trump tweeted that 1.126940 million votes were created out of thin air. I won Pennsylvania by a lot, perhaps more than anyone will ever know, he claims. Speaking to Raheem Kassam, who we had on the show last week, Pennsylvania's Republican Senator Doug Mastriani said, we are going to take the fight all the way to the Supreme Court if we have to. In Wisconsin on Tuesday, an emergency petition was filed challenging the state's unofficial results after finding 150,000 potentially fraudulent ballots, which is more than enough to change the election. Moreover, it says these discrepancies were a direct result of Wisconsin election officials' willful violation of state laws. This is not the ravings of some crazed fool who can't admit defeat. That analysis is fatuous and patronising. It's not only America that has so much to lose if this election was fraudulently won, but the whole world, us included. As always, let's leave the final words to Donald Trump, who spoke about Rudy Giuliani during the Pennsylvania hearings by phone.
I really appreciate it, and the country appreciates it, and we have to turn the election over because there's no doubt we have all the evidence, we have all the affidavits, we have everything. All we need is to have some judge listen to it properly without having a political opinion or having another kind of a problem, because we have everything. And by the way, the evidence is pouring in now as we speak, and I want to thank Rudy Giuliani for having the courage to do this, because there are other lawyers that backed down because they were being screamed at. And what you're doing now is far more important than being a great mayor of the city of New York and being its greatest mayor by far. By the way, by far. This is going to be your crowning achievement because you're saving our country. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
We shall see. Donald Trump has defied expectations many times. Those who underestimate him do so at their own peril. Follow these developments closely. Who knows what surprises lie ahead? As the brilliant Lenny Kravitz always used to remind us, it ain't over till it's over.
So many tears I've cried, so much pain.